okay. The sun will rise to better days, and change will come. It's on its way. Just close your eyes and let it rain. 'Cause you're never alone, and I will always be there. You just carry on.
So, we're ready to get started. It is my pleasure to introduce Landon Ballard.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Yeah? Would we rather be back at school in class? No? Nice to get out every once in a while, isn't it? So like Lisa said, my name's Landon. I'm with the group MWAH. That's M-W-A-H, and it stands for Messages Which Are Hopeful. Does anybody know about us or what I'm going to be talking about today? No? Perfect. All right, I'm going to be talking about the laws of thermodynamics. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't worry. Don't get out your textbooks. I'm just here to tell you guys some stories. I'm going to share a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell some other people's stories, but we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about mental health. You'll see me wearing this green wristband up here. That's actually the color for mental health awareness, and when you guys go to the resource fair, you all will get one as well. But we're going to be talking about mental health. My story, the backdrop, definitely revolves around addiction and recovery. So you'll hear my story a little bit. You'll get to hear some other people's stories. A drop of water just hit me in the face. Sorry, that threw me off a little bit. So you'll get to hear some stories. That's what I'm here to do today. I'm here to tell you guys some stories. So without any further ado, before I get rained on, let's kick it off with a story. All right, I'm going to tell you a story about a little girl. Real quick first, before we get started, actually, I know that talking about recovery and addiction can be kind of strange for some people, right? How many of us think that we deal with addiction personally? Couple maybe, not many, right? How many of us have a cell phone? Pretty much everybody. How many of us have a really hard time putting that cell phone away? All right, so when I'm talking to you about my addiction, it doesn't have to fit your addiction. Remember that, right? Maybe your addiction is not being able to change, constantly changing the style of your hair. Maybe your addiction is buying new shoes. Maybe your addiction is reading. You don't have to look for the similarities or for the differences in my story. Just look at the similarities, right? What thing in your life can you relate to what I'm talking about? That being said, let's take all of our phones real quick and stick them in our pockets, all right? I want everybody to put their phone in their pocket. And at the end here, we're going to see how hard it was for everybody to keep that phone in their pocket, all right? We'll see how we do. So let me tell you guys a story about a little girl. This little girl was born into a family with only one parent. How many of us maybe live in two different households with one parent? Yeah? This little girl's father was in prison when she was born. So she was born to just a mother. Right after she was born, she was pretty much given to her uncle. And so from the beginning, this little girl started dealing with abandonment issues. How many of us have felt alone in our lives? How many of us have felt like we don't have somebody around for us, right? From a very young age, this girl was dealing with abandonment issues. As she grew up, her dad was in and out of jail, never really a part of her life. And also as she grew up, she started to realize things about her family. She was one of those kids that kind of whoever in the family was around would just take care of her. Does anybody maybe know a situation like that? But she was kind of just, whoever was there would take care of her, right? And as she grew up, she started to understand a little bit why that was. Her mother was addicted to drugs. Her uncle, who was one of her primary caretakers, was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and so he wasn't able to take care of her the way that he should have been taking care of her. But from a very young age, she realized that she didn't want that for herself. And so she fought really hard, even as a kid, even as a young teenager, started making the right friends. That was a key part of her story. She didn't fall in with the same people that her family was hanging out with. She didn't start doing the same things that the people around her were doing. She found people who were doing better. She found people who were telling her she could do better. And she hung on to those people, and so she fought really hard to separate herself from this life that she was born into. And she did a really good job. By the age of 15, she ended up moving in with one of her friends because her home situation got so bad. Right? Her mother pretty much just gone all the time doing drugs, losing jobs, losing houses. Her uncle in and out of jail, in and out of rehab, in and out of wherever he could go, And for a long time, that's how she lived. Abandonment issues from the beginning, feeling alone, right? But at 15, she knew that she wanted better, and she got herself out of that situation. And it worked. It worked for a while. So for the next couple of years, she was just living with this close friend of hers, staying away from all of the negative things that had caught her family up and all of the crap that they were in and out of jail. And for those next 2 years, she did what she was supposed to do. And then at the age of 17, her mom died of an overdose. And she still kept doing what she was supposed to do. And this was the biggest way up until this point in her life. This is the biggest way that addiction had affected her life, and she had never touched a drug in her life. She made all the right decisions, and yet a lot of things in her world, in her life, were dictated by addiction and by alcohol, although she had never taken a drink or never taken a drug. She didn't let that suck her into the crap, though. She kept fighting. She kept knew that she was on the right path, and so she kept fighting to stay on that path. And for the next year, she did what she had to, started going to counseling, got the help that she needed for that, and finally felt like she was getting past that. And then she met a boy. Right? And that's where it all goes downhill, right, ladies? No, but she met this boy, right? And then all of a sudden, everything that she had fought so hard to get away from, all of these abandonment issues that she had fought, all resurface again when she finds out that her boyfriend is a drug addict. So these years and years and years of work that she had put in to separate herself, to do better for herself, all reversed in an instant. And she loved this person, so she didn't know what to do, She wanted him to do better, but she knew she needed better for herself. Now, why am I telling you this story? Well, because this is a little girl that was dictated, most of her life was dictated by addiction, and yet she never touched a drug. So remember that as we're going through these stories. As I'm talking about my addiction, maybe it's not about you, but eventually you're going to meet somebody. You're going to meet somebody who struggles, whether it's addiction, whether it's mental health. You're going to find somebody who's struggling. And all of a sudden, what's going on with them is going to feel like it's part of your life, because in a lot of ways it is. But you have to know that there are ways, there's better things out there. You can have better for yourself. You can love somebody from a distance until they can straighten themselves out. And that's what that little girl did. At 19 years old, she had to distance herself from that boy until he figured it out. And he did, eventually. That little girl is actually sitting right over there. She's my wife. And we did figure it out eventually. But it took a long time, and it took a lot of effort. And she dealt with addiction for about 20 years of her life and never used a drug. And so the reason I tell her story is because I know her story is similar to a lot of stories of you guys out there. Now me, you'll see my story. I was off the handle much earlier on, but there are a lot of people out there who don't have a problem with addiction, who don't have an interest in doing drugs. How many of us grew up dreaming of being a drug addict? No? Nobody? Didn't think so, right? We all had these hopes and these dreams of doing something different. But those of us who suffer in the way that I'll tell you about that I suffered, those dreams, those passions, they get taken away. So, I want to share my story with you guys a little bit. And remember, when I'm sharing this, remember, you're not looking for what's different about my story. Look for the similarities, right? And remember, just like in my wife Amaria's story, anybody can come from anywhere, right? She came from a family of drug addicts and alcoholics and made it out. She came from a family who didn't really have anywhere to live when she was born, who's probably lived in dozens of different houses, who went to multiple alternative schools, who had to get a GED because she didn't graduate high school. And she made it out. My story starts very differently. I was born into a Navy family. My dad served for the Navy for 21 years. I had 7 brothers and sisters. So we grew up in a very strict household. My parents were Southern Baptist. So there was not a whole lot of wiggle room for opinions in our house. Does anybody else feel like they have grown up in kind of a very strict household? Not even in a bad way, but just that you got parents who are kind of strict with you, yeah? Well, that was me. I always felt like my parents were trying to dictate what I would do, and as a young man, that upset me, you know? I was the middle kid. I had 3 older siblings and 4 younger siblings, and so I always had trouble figuring out who I was, who I wanted Landon to be, and for a while, I struggled with that. So we moved around a lot when my dad was in the Navy until I was about 13 and he got out of the Navy. And we settled down in Rockford. Rockford, Illinois is where I'm from. Does anybody know where Rockford is? It's not far. We settled back down in Rockford. And for the first time, I got the opportunity to start kind of building a life, I guess, and making permanent friends. And the problem was, at the age of 13, I started making the wrong friends, right? I started hanging out with the people that I thought were doing things that were cool. What do I mean by cool? Well, has anybody ever wanted to do something just because they were told not to do it? Has anybody ever done something just because it's kind of dangerous? Just because maybe it's a little bad? Oh, I'm the only one? A couple of us? All right. Well, for a lot of us, that's a little bit of nature that kicks in, right? And so for a long time, I started to chase those things, the things that I was told not to do, the people I was told not to hang out with, you know. And I was fitting in, I thought. But let me tell you something about fitting in. You will fit in with anyone if they're doing it too. Right? If we're all jumping off the bridge, it doesn't seem that weird. But if I'm the only one doing it, what are you doing? Right? So at the age of 13, 14, 15, I'm hanging out with almost adults smoking weed. You know, by 15 years old, I'm smoking weed almost every single day. I thought it was cool. Right? I thought it was normal. I thought that I was like more mature than everybody else, right? I didn't think it was a problem, that's for sure. At 14, 15 years old, I didn't think it was a problem. Now, I had some good conversation with the middle schoolers yesterday, so you guys definitely can't pull the wool over my eyes. Raise your hand if you know someone or have experienced this whole vaping thing that's going on right now. Everywhere, right? If you're not raising your hand, I don't know if I can trust you on that one. It's crazy, it's everywhere, and it probably feels pretty normal, right? Well, I was hanging out with the people that made me feel that way about the drugs that I was doing, right? Vaping's the same way. If everybody's doing it, it just seems normal, right? It's cool. If you're not doing it, then you're weird. And so I kind of lived like that for a while, chasing those things that I thought would give me validation because I thought that I was fitting in. I was just finding people who were also doing bad things and doing them with them, right? Now, growing up, I was, like I said, raised in a real strict household, a household where we always needed to look a certain way from the outside. And so I always made sure that I looked a certain way from the outside. At 16 years old, me and my friends were changing prescriptions, popping pills, smoking weed, and nobody really knew it. From the outside, my life was still together. I was getting good grades. I had a job. I was playing basketball, and I was a starter on my varsity basketball team at 16. Like, I liked doing what I was doing because nobody really gave me crap about it. I had these two versions of me that I would live. You know, I'd go home and be this one person, and then I'd go hang out with my friends and be a completely different person. And the things that I was doing when I was with my friends, I couldn't talk about at home, you know. And so I started to build this second person, this second Landon, right? And over time, he started to become more of me than I was me. At 18 years old, you could probably imagine where my addiction was. I'd been playing basketball since I was 10 years old. Always dreamed of playing at Ohio State University. That's where my dad grew up, so I had big dreams of playing in a Big Ten basketball college. By the time I'm 16, 17 years old, I'm smoking so much weed, I don't care about that anymore, you know. I hope I get into college, that's it, you know. But I'm still playing, I still like it, you know, the passion is kind of still there. And then I get into college. I ended up going to Rockford University, playing basketball, which wasn't obviously the Ohio State University, but I was living out my dream. I dreamed of playing college basketball, and there I was doing it. And by the second semester, right before the first game started, I quit. I quit because the second version of me told me that we didn't really care that much. And so I missed out on a big part of my life because I decided to chase what felt good. I decided to not look at what I was doing as what it really was, right? At 18 years old, I was a drug addict. At 18 years old, I was an alcoholic. And at 18 years old, I would look you in the face and tell you, I'm good. And then I had a mental breakdown. Anybody ever had a mental breakdown? I went to the hospital for like a week and got diagnosed as bipolar. And what do we do when we get diagnosed as sick? Does anybody know what happens when somebody tells us we're sick? What do we typically do? Nobody? Nobody knows? Maybe take some medicine? Go to the doctor maybe? Right? Well, when I was told I was sick, when I was told, hey, you got this issue with your head, I went, nah, I'm good. Don't worry about it. I've made it this far, right? Completely ignored the issue. That fixes it, right? Not really. The next couple years were probably the worst years of my life. You know, running from these things that I now knew about myself. I knew I'm an addict. I knew I'm an alcoholic. I know I'm not mentally well. But I'm just going to run from it. You know, I'm just going to pretend that it's not going on. And I'm going to keep burying myself in this thing that numbs me. Let me tell you, at 13 years old, I really did want to go to Ohio State. I didn't think that my future was going to look like the way that it did. At 18 years old, dropping out of college, I had like an Under Armour backpack with my name stitched into it. You know, I had my name on the back of the jersey. It's like what I dreamed of, and I quit. And now at 19 years old, I'm bouncing around from city to city, Milwaukee, Chicago. I started doing meth at this point. And that's what happens. See, when you're that deep, when you get into that cycle of addiction, when you get into that cycle of alcoholism, all of a sudden you have nowhere to go. Because you stopped paying rent, because your parents kicked you out, because whoever you were staying with kicked you out. And so at 19 years old, I was living in Milwaukee. I came back to Rockford to visit my mom for her birthday, because I had to stay looking a certain way from the outside, right? So I got to go home and see my mom for her birthday at least. And I go back home to Milwaukee, and the dude that I was living with moved without me, took all my stuff and left. So at 19 years old, I'm back in Rockford, homeless, with nowhere to go. So for the next few months, I'm bouncing off of couches, sleeping on park benches. At 19 years old, I am homeless. A year before, what did I tell you I was doing? Living out my dream? In 1 year, I gave everything up. You know, you've probably heard people say drugs took something away from me, or alcohol took something away from me. And while in a lot of ways it does take things away from you, your passion, whatever, in my opinion, I freely gave that up. I gave it up. I made the decisions that I made, and I gave that passion up because I didn't want to take a step towards doing the hard thing, towards doing the right thing. And in March of 2020, I was at the lowest point that I've ever been. I'd been to jail, I'd been in and out of rehab, and I was sitting in a hospital bed with a shattered jaw. So I'm looking around, handcuffed to the bed, thinking I've got probably two options here, right? Because this doesn't seem to be getting any better. I can just accept that this is my life now, and it's probably going to end pretty soon. Or I can take that step, look at that mountain that I've put myself at the bottom of, and just take the first step. Just start that journey. And that was the hardest part. Because I put myself there, so I should be able to get myself out, right? I should be able to just say, I really want it, I'm going to do it, right? I really wanted it for a couple of years. I really wanted it for years, probably. But what did I never do? I never looked for some help. I said, well, I got myself here, so I'm going to get myself out. And then it never got any better. You know, I went to rehab a couple times because my parents made me. But I never actually committed to getting help for myself. And so sitting in that hospital bed 5 years ago almost now, 5 years ago now, made that decision. As much as it sucks, I'm going to start climbing that mountain. So I got out of there, and I went straight to rehab, and I took some space away from that woman that I love back there on the wall. I went to rehab. I started going to groups where people were like me, where I started fitting in with a different kind of group, right? I wasn't, fitting in with the same kids from high school, but I was hanging out with a bunch of addicts. I started going to this group called AA and NA. Does anybody know what that is? Right? It's a group of alcoholics or a group of addicts who get together and stay sober together. I looked for resources to help me. I started doing the things that I needed to do to get help. Could anybody else have done that for me? No. A lot of people tried. There were a lot of people in my life who really, if they could have, they would have done it for me. But they couldn't. So, now, I'm 25 years old, years of sobriety under my belt, married, We're about to have our third kid in April, and I have the opportunity to come out and share my story with you guys. I should, by all statistics, probably be not alive right now. When I was living in Milwaukee, I'll tell you a little story and then we'll move on here. When I was living in Milwaukee, I was hanging out with bad people, gangbangers. I was out at 3 a.m. with them at a gas station, and one of them started talking crap to just some random guy who's at the gas station, right? So these guys both look at us and start backing us up to our car and lift their shirt up, and they both got guns under their belt. And I'd never been in a situation like that before, right? So I'm, hey, we don't want any trouble. We're leaving right now. We're leaving right now. I'm the apologizer, right? Let me get out of that situation. And we go home, right? A couple hours later, we're sitting in the house, and all of a sudden, bullets just start flying through the window. Glass everywhere. And somehow, every single bullet missed me. I don't know about anybody else in the house because I was gone. But that is just one of many, 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 many situations that I found myself in because of the people, the places, the things that I was doing. It's important for me to talk about those things, not just for you all to hear them, but I have to remember the lows that I was at. Because this mental health stuff, this addiction, this recovery, it's tough. I've got years of sobriety and I still struggle. I still have to go to meetings. I get to, sponsor people now, and I get to, actually pour back into the community that helped me, but it's a struggle, and I have to get help every day. I want to tell you guys another story about a young boy named Josh. Joshua Wilson was a boy pretty much just like any of us, right? At 12 years old, his favorite thing to do was play with Legos. Whose favorite thing was Legos at 12, right? My favorite thing is still Legos. Some of y'all's favorite thing is Legos. I know it. You're not raising your hand. His favorite thing was Legos. He was a normal middle school kid. He loved his little sister. He had a real creative mind, got good grades. His parents had gotten a divorce a couple years before, and obviously kids have to deal with that. But he didn't seem to be taking it any worse than the typical kid, right? Didn't seem to be having a whole lot of issues, wasn't talking about much. And at 12 years old, Joshua Wilson took his own life. Joshua Wilson was probably one of the strongest people that I've heard of. So strong, in fact, that he just kept all of his problems to himself. How many of us do that, right? How many of us feel like our problems are a burden to other people? How many of us feel like it's my problem, so nobody else should have to deal with it? Joshua Wilson didn't find his person, right? As strong as he was, as much as he loved everybody else, he didn't find that person who he could talk to about himself, who he could really open up to. I believe there's two types of friends in this world: shovel friends and ladder friends. Shovel friends are friends who see you doing something negative for yourself, digging a hole for yourself, doing something that's going to be difficult for you to get out of, and they go, let me try it. That's not that big of a deal. I think you could go a little deeper, right? The friend that sees you vaping in school and goes, hey, let me hit it, come on. Right? Those are shovel friends. Ladder friends, that's the opposite, right? You guys can probably got a good idea of what I mean there. They're those friends who see you digging that hole, see you putting yourself in a position that's going to be hard for you to get out of, and they jump in and go, hey, it's right up there. We don't have to do this. There's light up there. There's more people up there. Because what are we really doing when I'm talking about digging a hole? isolating, all of these things that we do, unless you got your group of friends that you're doing them with, right? And they're very isolating. And if I look back on all of those times that I was using and abusing alcohol and drugs, oh yeah, there were some fun times in there. And then we would get sober. And so there's two types of friends. Now, why am I telling you this? So that you can go through your friends and catalog them and start dropping ones off and picking up new ones? No. This is for you. This information is all just for you, okay? This is so you can evaluate yourself. Because I tend to be a shovel friend sometimes. I'm not the kind of friend that's going to jump in there with you and dig. But I am sometimes the type of friend that's going to go, oh, he's digging a hole. Ooh. That sucks. Right? Is that any worse than being a shovel friend? No, if I have the opportunity, if I see somebody who's struggling and I have the opportunity to give them some encouragement, to help them up even just a little bit, and I don't do that, well, might as well have grabbed a shovel. Might as well have tossed them a shovel. So this is for you. Now, I hope all of us can pretty much say, yeah, I do a good job of being a ladder friend to other people, right? Try to build people up. Try not to be nasty to people. Try to be encouraging to others. But I'm sure we can all identify some times in our own lives where that's a struggle with certain people, right? We all have that one person that we feel like doesn't like us, or that we feel like we can't like no matter what, right? Be a ladder friend. Don't be a shovel friend. So, we're talking a lot about kind of being open with each other, being honest, right? How friendship should work. I want to kind of do a little demonstration here. We'll see if this works. Those middle school kids yesterday, they gave me a run for my money with this one, so bear with me, guys. All right, I'm going to need like 6 volunteers. Come on. Nobody wants to do anything this morning? Don't worry, it's not that bad. Come on, right there in the front. Maroon sweatshirt. Yep. You want to come up? Both of you? All right. In the back there? Sweater? Yeah. I like your sweater, by the way. And right there. All right, so I need all of you up on stage. All right. All right. Now, everybody kind of space yourselves out in the circle around these cones, right? Now, here's what we're going to do. I guess I'll stand so you guys can see me here. We're going to rotate. That's it. You guys know clockwise, right? All right. So you're all going to stand, face clockwise, but you're not going to be able to pay attention to anybody else, okay? Watch your feet and walk at your own pace. Don't worry about what speed anybody else is walking at. Walk at your own pace, right? I'm going to give you some direction from down here. Tell you speed up, might tell you slow down, might tell you stop. All right? So we'll see how this goes. Go ahead and evenly space yourselves right now before we start. All right? You guys ready? Go. All right. Speed up a little. Faster. And stop. You guys see anything here? We got like 4 people on one side. We got like 2 people on the other, right? All right, space out again. Try to evenly space yourselves. Now again, that was good. You guys are doing perfect. Heads down, looking at your feet. I'm going to give you a little more complicated instructions this time, and we'll see how we do. Ready? Clockwise. Go. Speed up. A little faster. Stop. Turn around. Forward. Stop. Turn around. Walk backwards. Stop. All right. We're running into each other, right? Right? We're getting a little mixed up here. We've got big old space. All right. We're not in order anymore, are we? All right. So everybody evenly space yourselves out one more time. Now I'm going to hand you this rope. All right, now evenly space yourselves out one more time. All right, now I'm going to give you some instruction. Same exact thing. This time, though, keep your heads up. You can look at each other. All right, you can watch each other. We're going to start clockwise, and we'll see how this goes. Try to keep a little tension on the rope, okay? So you guys want to stay evenly spaced. Pay attention to everybody else's speed, and we'll see if we can keep in order. Ready? Clockwise, go. Speed up. Slow down. Stop. Walk backwards. Stop. Forwards. Stop. Turn around. Walk forward. Stop. Walk backwards. I mean, we can go all day here. All right, go ahead and stop. Let's give it up for him. Right there. Thanks, guys. You guys can go ahead and take a seat. You can drop the rope right there. So as we can see, right, when we're all holding the rope here, it was a whole lot easier for them to kind of follow instructions, stay within, give each other a little space. Nobody was running into each other, right? So what is this? Well, this is what we were talking about. This is trust, right? You have to find people in your circle who you can trust, who you can be open with, who you can be honest with, who can see what's going on in your life so that we're not having issues, so that we're not messing up the flow of things, right? I want to tell you guys another story. I know. We'll go back to story time. I hope that made some sense. You guys, the middle schoolers, man, no matter what you tell them to do, they'll try to beat it. They think it's a test somehow. So they definitely had me on that one, but I think that worked today. I want to tell you guys another story, though. This is a story about a kid who had a very similar story to me. His name was Keenan. And Keenan, he was born into an adopted family as a baby, though. So he was raised with this family pretty much his whole life. Had everything going for him as a young kid. He was being groomed as the future quarterback for his very highly regarded football team, Wheaton Warrenville South High School football. The Wheaton South High School varsity football team. The problem was that just like my story, at the age of 13, Keenan started smoking weed. Right? His story progressed much like mine, although his ended a little differently. At the age of 19 years old, Keenan died of a heroin overdose. I tell Keenan's story, though, because Keenan never gave up hope. I got the opportunity to meet with Keenan's father, and I asked him what Keenan would say if he were here with you guys today. You probably saw maybe on the poster on the way here. He told me that Keenan would say, "You are good enough." He wanted me to share that with you, that you are good enough. Good enough for what? Good enough to get help for whatever it is that you need help for. Good enough to be happy. Good enough to be doing better than whatever that thing is. You are good enough. The other thing that he told me Keenan would say if he were here is don't do it because it will do you. And that's just like I've been telling you up here, right? All of those decisions that I was making 13 to 16 years old that I thought weren't a big deal eventually dictated my entire life. And I got lucky. Think about that story with those bullets flying through the window. I got lucky. Keenan ran out of luck at 19 years old. And it's different for everybody. Your luck might run out at 102, I'm still running on luck right now. But when you're dealing with addiction, when you're dealing really with any sickness, right? If you have cancer and you don't treat it, you're running on luck. If you have a broken arm and you don't go to the doctor to get it fixed, you're running on luck. You might get through it, It might miraculously heal itself, but chances are it's going to take a lot longer. It's going to hurt. It's not going to heal right. You know? So think about Josh's story. Think about Keenan's story. Get the help that we know is out there. This is one of the main points that I want you guys to take away, right? Here it is. Your story is unique. That's why I feel alone. That's why you feel alone. That's why you feel different. Nobody has lived your story. Somebody out there needs to hear your story. But why? Because your struggle is not unique, not one bit. If you think you're going through something new, you're not. You might be dealing with it in a different way than anybody has ever had to go through it before. Your story might be different, but guess what? Whether it's your parents' divorce, whether it's a relative on drugs, whether it's your mom not giving you enough attention, whether it's your dad beating you, somebody has been through it and made it out the other side. Good. Somebody already beat that system. So there's help out there. I want to do one more little demonstration for you guys. We need 4 volunteers. 4 volunteers. All the way in the back in the white sweater. Right there. Pink, purple. Yeah. Go ahead. And yeah, we'll go right here. All right, we're going to do the world's shortest obstacle course. What do you guys think? All right, let's do it quick. Here we go. I need everybody on this side of the stage for me, please. All right, here we go. So this is your obstacle course. It is about 4 feet wide. It is about 10 feet long. And you have 8 obstacles. Who wants to go first? We'll go here. All right. So you're going to start on this side. You're going to have to go in between these ropes and make it all the way to the other side. You got it? No. So go ahead and stand there for me. You don't have to weave them. You don't have to do a pattern. Just make it from one side to the other. Ready, set, go. All right, let's give it up for her. Thank you. You can take a seat. All right, our first contestant made it through, no issues. Who's going to go second? Yeah? All right. You're going to do it with your eyes closed, though. Okay. All right? Now look at these. Ready? I can't trip over these. You can step on them. It don't matter, right? Don't worry about hitting them. I don't want you to do any high step and trip yourself, right? And I promise I will not let you fall off the stage, all right? But you're going to do it with your eyes closed. Got it? Yeah. All right, we'll see how you do. Don't go outside the lines. Try to get around the cones. Ready? Go. All right, you're good. Close your eyes, open your eyes. Perfect. So you made it through. We knocked over a couple things, stepped on a cone, right? Okay. You can go ahead and sit down. Thank you. Now the last 2 here. You guys are going to work as a team. All right? One of you guys is going to close your eyes. The other is going to guide the other guy through. Right? So one of you is going to put your hands on the shoulders. Somebody's going to close their eyes. Who wants to close their eyes? All right? And you'll guide him through? Yep. All right. Now there's 2 of them, so we'll make it just a little wider. 4.5 feet. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing. You guys close your eyes. I'm going to move them around. You got to try to get him through. All right? Ready? Go. Don't let him run into any cones. All right. There we go. Give it up for him. You guys can take a seat. All right. Now, we had somebody go through yesterday. They closed their eyes and they just did this. Got over every cone. Like, okay, we'll use that. Guess what? The first one went through, eyes open, fine, right? This is your life. If you can walk through life with your eyes open to all of your problems, great, perfect. You're not going to have any issues, right? You can make it one side or the other, no help. Most of us, though, live our life like the second or the third, right? It's hard for me to see what I haven't done before. Anybody ever lived this lifetime before? I haven't. This is all new to us. So it's okay for you to ask for help. Think of that third try through. He had no idea where he was going. His eyes were closed. But he had somebody helping him through. And even when I was changing things up, even when they weren't what he thought was in front of him, he was able to make it through because he got the help that he needed to get. Right? So, 2 takeaways, right? Remember, you are good enough. Get the help. Take that step, even if you think it's something small. If it's something you think about, talk about it. If it's something you think about, talk about it. And number 2, your story is unique. It needs to be shared. There is somebody out there who needs to hear your story. And your story. Who needs to hear your story. Because they're going through what you're about to make it through. Because your struggle is not unique. Your story is unique, but your struggle is not. Now, this is all of our first times here, right? But there are people who've been through what we've gone through. So remember that. Make sure you guys visit us out there when you go over across the street for lunch. I've got a wristband for every single one of you. It says you are good enough, and it's green for that mental health awareness like I was talking about. I appreciate you guys letting me come out here, say a few things to you. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day today. I think I'll pass it off to Lisa. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Landon. Let's give him one more big round of applause.